subdivision located east of County Trunk Highway PB and north of Sunset Drive. Mr. Sayer, if you would, please.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting an initial review of a proposed 108-lot subdivision located on Sunset Drive, immediately south of the dog park. The average lot size in the development will range from 1 to 2 acres. And I guess before I get into my report, I'll give some background on the project. Discussions on this project began actually back in 2005 and occurred both with the city and town. The initial proposal studied serving this area with municipal sewer and water. The construction of municipal water would require the crossing of topography that includes 150 feet of vertical elevation change and 3 different water pressure zones. Adding the water infrastructure would require an additional booster station, transmission and distribution mains that had an estimated cost in 2007 of $1.6 million. The extension of the sanitary sewer would require a lift station and connection into the interceptor south of County Highway M between Verona Technology Park and Cathedral Point subdivision. The estimated cost of this sewer extension to the Brown property in 2007 was $1.3 million. So back in 2007, running infrastructure to it would have been approximately $3 million. And this cost did not include an upgrade to the interceptor that would have to increase in size as well. So based on the cost, the proposal was withdrawn by the applicant, and he went back to the town to talk about doing a project on private septic and wells. And while the record's not clear, it did go to the town, and it looks like the town did not act on it, but I'm not exactly sure what the record is on that because it's with the town, not with the city. And after that, the developer began in 2009 once again talking again with the city, and discussions have been on and off ever since. Most recently, the project was discussed by the Plan Commission in February of this year. In general, at that time, the Plan Commission was open to this idea. Since that meeting, they've made some minor modifications to the plan. The biggest modification is they've added a corridor for the Ice Age Trail, a larger corridor, so it would be a large swath of green space for that trail to run through. Looking at the consistency with the city's comprehensive plan, the city's comprehensive plan does identify this area as a possible development area in the city. We looked at it in the comprehensive plan, then also in the southeast neighborhood plan. So there was some, they did contemplate doing some type of development down there. The plan wasn't specific in how that would occur, but it did acknowledge that there's a possibility of developing this property and land in this area. So it is generally consistent with that plan. As with the last Plan Commission meeting, we have a variety of issues that would have to be addressed, and I won't go through them individually. I think they're probably discussed the last in February, but there's a variety of issues with this project that staff would have to work with, and even talking about our wellhead protection ordinance, that'd be one as well. But there's a lot of ordinances and things we'd have to amend because it is on private well and on private septic systems. It would not be on municipal water and municipal sewer. So those are issues we'd have to work out and work through with the developer if the project were to move forward. One potential course of action if the city wants to proceed with this type of development would be to amend the southeast neighborhood plan to explicitly reference this project or this type of development. In addition to that, concurrently, the city could amend ordinances at the same time. That'd be the process if this project does move forward. Staff would recommend that. Now, we did speak with the Regional Plan Commission, the CARPC, because questions have come up in the past of would this impact our acreage allocation. For those who are not familiar with it, CARPC does put an acreage cap on how many acres that we can actually bring into our urban service area, USA area. They cap it, and right now we're at approximately 300 some acres. So we did ask staff at CARPC, would this project, if approved by the city, impact that cap that is in place? And they said no, it would not, because it is not served by municipal sewer and water. So this project or any other projects that are on private well or septic would not impact our request to the Regional Plan Commission for sewer extensions. So tonight, in looking at recommendations, obviously staff would like the Plan Commission to discuss this and provide the applicant some feedback. This will also be going to the Common Council as well to provide some direction and feedback because there are some larger policy implications as well with this project. So tonight we actually have 5 questions that we're encouraging the Plan Commission to answer. And what we're looking for from a staff standpoint and also from a developer standpoint is obviously both the developer and staff acknowledge there's a lot of questions that still need to be answered. And neither the developer or staff really wants to go down the road of working through all these issues to find out on principle this type of development wouldn't be supportive. We you know, and we just don't want to spend the time doing that to find out the end result was no, we don't want this type of development. So we have 5 questions, and I'll run through them real quick, and I would just encourage the Planning Commission to think about those and attempt to answer those. So the first question is, does the Planning Commission support private well and septic development for the Brown Farm development? Second question is, does the Planning Commission support private well and septic development for other areas that cannot be easily served by municipal water and sewer? Does the Planning Commission support private well and septic development for areas that can be easily served by municipal water and sewer? Does the Planning Commission support lower density residential development in outlying areas which may be more difficult or costly to provide with city services? And finally, does the Planning Commission support lower density residential development in outlying areas if the anticipated tax base is sufficient to cover the cost of providing services, city services? So with that, staff encourages you to provide feedback to the applicant and hopefully do your best if you could answer those questions. It'd be helpful to the staff and the developer.
Thank you, Mr. Sayre. Is there anyone here representing the Brown property or the development, proposed development, that wishes to speak?
Good evening. My name is Tony Henricks, and I am here to have the fun discussion of this area and the potential possibility of developing it. So, as most of you know, it's been ongoing for 7 or 8, maybe even going on 9 years. There are 3 landowners out there, Warren and Marianne Olson. They have approximately 31 acres. With approximately 10 home sites on that. Stephen Kieran Reinen with 36 acres and 15 home sites, and George Brown of 178 acres and 83 sites. I probably jumped ahead of myself, and we should get a concept up here. Ron, do you? I also have, while Ron's doing that, there are several people here that I've asked to come this evening and discuss some of the issues out here. One is Ron Klaus, our engineer, talk about the stormwater and any other engineering questions. The next person would be Jim Clark. He was the director of the environmental health for Dane County, I guess otherwise known as the Dane County Sanitation Officer for approximately 20 years. And I brought Lori Zorb, who's the #2 real estate agent from Stark Realty, maybe to talk about the real estate environment as it is today, because it has certainly changed over the course of 8 years when I first submitted this. And as I did in February, I believe, I did want to take a quick moment and thank George Brown. He's been very patient. He's been very reasonable and very patient and understanding and working with me. And because of him, I have the opportunity to stand here before us tonight. It is our intention to work with Dane County Parks. We've had numerous meetings with them over the years. It is our intention to work with Ice Age Trails and trying to help them accomplish their goals. It is our intention to work with city staff, Common Council Plan Commission, address any and all concerns that might be before us. I know well and septic is something new to the city. Good news is it's been around a long time. So it's something that our neighbors have, the town of Verona, town of Middleton, and I guess the question here is it worthy to bring to the city of Verona? I'm going to just hand out a flyer, Pat, if you want to take one and pass it down. As most of you know, the challenges to getting water and sewer out here. And so what I did was I took a copy of the plat book of the town of Verona and the city of Verona. And if you look at like sections 26, 36, and 35, the yellow highlighted area, in comparison to lands to the north, lands to the west, lands to the northwest, they all seem to be larger properties in those areas. If you look in this area, it really already seems to be, I guess, chopped up, if you will. A lot of 4 acres, 2 acres, 5 acres, 6 acres. I'm just reading off some of them. 8 acres, 10 acres, 15 acres, 4 acres. Yeah, I mean, it goes on and on. So it already has a feel, a flavor of obviously rural development. And maybe one could almost say that by looking at this, the 3 parcels that we're here to discuss is almost a infill. So that's just something, kind of a visual that you could take a look at. It seemed like in the past when I've gotten press, my phone rings off the hook the next couple of days from residents, and they say, can you put me on a list, or when are you getting approvals? This is really something we're excited about, and we've lived in Verona forever, and we really want to build up and move up, and we want to come in, we want to talk to you, we want to bring our builder in, and I just have to sit there and say, no, way too premature. But I can tell you, and I don't know if anybody's here tonight, I've been contacted in the past, and people even said, would you mind if we come in and talk on your behalf? And I said, you're more than welcome to. So I did look at a financial benefit to the city, and I just took an average, if an average house was assessed at $500,000, yearly taxes, and Adam, thank you for supplying me with these numbers, were just over about $11,250 in round numbers. And what that means to the city of Verona, it's just over $3,200 per year, and if there were 108 homes approved, that's right around $350,000 a year in revenue to the city. To the Verona School District, that same house assessed it would be just over $5,500, and what that equates to is right around the $600,000 range in revenue. And then your county, state, and MATC tax is just over $2,400, and that equates to about $265,000 a year, and those are general yearly incomes and revenues. You know, there's a lot of talk, you know, about downtown areas, how Verona should grow, what type of growth, and I guess you know, Verona is growing a lot, and it's a vibrant community, and I believe that there should be all types of development within this community, entry level, mid range, and high end. I guess we're just looking. This is a way to supply one sector of that, and having a diversity in the housing stock within the community. And I guess with that, I am going to hand it over. Well, if anybody has any questions for me. And yes.
Tony, I'm sure that we'll have questions, but one thing that I know you've talked about in the past, and maybe you could speak to right now, is certainly not all 108 lots will be built out of there'd be a phase in. Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah, it would be a phased subdivision, given the size. it would be phased over. You know, I don't have the crystal ball as to what the market is out there. Lower Zorb will maybe be able to shed some light on that. But all of our previous subdivisions have been phased over time in market conditions.
Okay. Anyone else, Tony, that you wanted to speak at this time?
Yeah, I'd like to ask Ron Klaus to come up.
Good evening. I'm just going to briefly address the stormwater management. We have taken a preliminary look at this, and we know there are some existing runoff problems downstream right now with current conditions. And with this brown farm in the middle of the watershed, and in fact, it's a huge percentage of the watershed. It's a working farm. If that were to be developed along the lines of this concept plan, there would be large prairie grass areas, permanent cover everywhere, detention basins, infiltration techniques. We'd have to follow DNR, Dane County, and City of Verona ordinances. The stormwater runoff issues would be greatly improved. That's just the nature of how this thing would have to be done. In fact, instead of looking at controlling runoff to current rates, we're required to go back to pre-development runoff rates. So the downstream neighbors, the groundwater issues, the whole watershed in general would be improved. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on that, but otherwise, that's all I had for tonight.
Any questions or comments for Ron at this point? Mr. Gunlock?
Yeah, the only comment I have is because this is going to drain into the township, not only rate, but volume would have to be controlled.
Right? Yeah, and that's where infiltration would become vital.
Mm-hmm.
Questions or comments from the Plan Commission for Mr. Klaus? Mr. Yours?
I guess I'm not sure who's necessarily going to answer this question. I guess any of you probably could. Just briefly on the map, could you show us where, because I know in the packet it talks about where the city parks would have to take the charge in maintaining and where it'd be private, where they would maintain. Could you just quickly show us?
Ron, could you grab either that lapel mic or the cordless mic over there if you're going to be speaking?
I don't think those details have been fully worked out, but what I'm envisioning is that there would be city parklands down in this corner, in this area near the entrance. There would be a central corridor with prairie grasses and a trail system, drainage way, but in all likelihood that might be privately owned and maintained. Tony?
Yeah, we've talked with park staff over the years, and we're still open for direction on that as this, if it gains momentum. That's discussions we would like to continue and have. I know in talking with parks that they had mentioned, if this were a higher end neighborhood, that those homeowners might be more accustomed to something than what city provides in the way of mowing. And so a neighborhood association would most likely maybe take care of the front entrance and again, just here to work through some of these issues. We're very flexible at this time. we'll do our best to, we're trying to create or maintain flexibility as we work through all these issues, but it's kind of a to be determined at this point in time.
And I would like to add one thing about the Ice Age Trail. The dog park is here, and the Ice Age Trail would like to extend their corridor to the southeast. So we've shown that trail system through here, and I think we're still remaining flexible on ownership versus easement for that as well.
Excuse me, questions or comments from Planning Commission members at this point? Mr. Yurs?
While we're going over the map, are both the areas where you intersect with the entrance areas, I guess you could call them, with Sunset, is that road going to be completed all during phase one, or is one entrance going to be placed and then as you move around, just for like emergency vehicles being able to loop around and things of that nature?
You know, again, we really haven't, obviously it would be a phased plan. And if I just had to sit here tonight and create a phasing plan for topic of discussion, this might be a phase, this might be a phase, this might be a phase, phase. We have talked with the police department. They've been supportive. We've talked with the fire department. They're supportive. They've raised some issues. They've raised some concerns. But in our initial conversations and dialogue with them, we felt comfortable that we would be able to address some of those issues.
I think just in addition to that, the conversations that we've had in the past, that if it were phased, and more than likely it would be, that all those safety precautions would have to be put in place so that perhaps even if there's a stub street that's in there, that there's a large enough bulb in that area that larger vehicles could turn around in that area. That's necessary for that to occur.
Yeah, we talked about that. We've even talked about certain driveways at certain lengths on any given street here, the apron be a certain width for fire department turnaround.
Questions, comments, feedback from the Planning Commission? Mr. Horsfall?
I'm kind of a broken record on this, but my answer to all 5 questions is no.
Okay.
Would it be okay if, like I said, well, and septic is nothing new, but it might be to some of us. And I'm wondering if I'd like to bring in Jim Clark and have him talk about it and how it might actually benefit the area and downstream from its current use.
Mr. Clark, you have the microphone.
Good evening. My name is Jim Clark, and I was the Director of Environmental Health for Dane County for 28 years. And a big part of our duties throughout those years was licensing and regulation of private sewage systems and private water wells. As many of you are probably aware, around Dane County there are clusters of subdivisions that are served strictly by private sewage systems and private water wells, probably thousands and thousands of lots. I think if you ask the people that live in those areas, they're quite happy with their environment and with the systems that serve them. I think a lot of it has to do with having the correct design and maintenance in order for those systems to work properly. And actually, I was happy in Dane County because one of the few counties in the state where it was the health department that oversaw those things. It wasn't zoning departments or planning departments, which tend to take a little more technical view of some of these things. As I say, I was proud in Dane County because it was the health department, and I have every faith that these systems do work properly. because of the regulations, not only at the state level, but that the county board actually adopted, that in many ways the county regulations are stricter. So I'm not quite sure where else I should go with this. Again, the system served many thousands of people already very faithfully and correctly. A lot of the problems that tend to linger in people's heads about failing septic systems are actually a result of procedures and things that went on before the regulations were in place. So the types of failures that used to occur could be both treatment failure and hydraulic failure. Since about 1976, truly the only type of failure that can occur is hydraulic, which is generally pretty easy to fix.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Were there any questions for Mr. Clark? Comments? Ms. Ritter and then Mr. Yurs, please.
So the land out here is the land different enough amongst the acreage that different types of septic systems could be put in, or do you see one similar system being on each property? I know that there's mound systems and there's all different kinds of systems. Can you talk a little bit about the different types of systems that could be applicable to the land that we're talking about?
Sure. As I understand it, there has been some preliminary soil testing done there, and there's a range of different types of systems. There's a gravity system, which, as it explains, is the water flows by gravity into the soil, but there's not many of those sites that would be suitable for that type of system. The majority would be the mound type system, which actually is really designed for the way people use water today. And so it pressurizes the water from the house, it doses it, so it's not just trickling through the system all day long. Those systems last longer, and if they do have any hydraulic failure, they can be repaired right in the same spot. So the repair costs are actually less. And frankly, with the mound type system, which you would have the option of requiring to be used on all the lots regardless of what they might be suitable for, you would not need a 1 acre lot. You could get by with half-acre lots very easily. So if there's a density issue, simply by taking that step, you would be providing the people with little insurance that they might not want themselves because mounds are a little more expensive. But you could have greater density, the systems would last longer, and would be easier to repair.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Yurs?
Actually, that kind of spoke to really what my question was about, well, one of them. And then also, what's the likelihood that at some point in time that the city will have to come and put city utilities in? Is it 30 years down the road or further than that? I don't know much about how these things work, and Mr. Heinrichs has been great talking with me about these issues, but just trying to learn more as we go through this process.
Yes. That also is a hangover from pre-1976, where the soils were not suitable to begin with. And if you had failures, there was no good solution. But the only thing that could be done was a holding tank, which in my view is also not a solution. So cities and villages would be required to extend their public sewer to those areas just to resolve the health issues that were arising. However, with the modern day technology, the testing that's required to prove that the soil is suitable, and again with mound type systems, you could repair it in place. There are mounds in Dane County that are over 30 years old that are still operating very functionally well. If they should fail, because they are actually constructed in a manufactured sand bed, and there's only about a layer of 3 inches thick that actually clogs, that causes the hydraulic failure. You go in, take the piping network out, scrape off the affected sand, put new sand in, and you're ready to go for another 30 years or more, depending on, a lot of it has to do with how people use water in their house. The more they use, the quicker that may occur. But the dosing and the pumping helps overcome the way people use water, because it only will push a certain amount of water, and then it might be another 8 hours or more before that amount of water is used again to be pushed out into the field. So it enhances the wetting and drying cycle of the soil. Another thing that I didn't touch on, which I think is important, is that when you are on public sewer, the water you use goes to Madison Metro, goes down the Rock River, to the Gulf of Mexico. With these types of systems, the water that's drawn out of the ground is actually put right back into the same watershed. And it only takes 3 feet of natural soil to purify the effluent to drinking water quality. And that's a well-known and well-researched fact. So with the mounds and the types of soils that you'll find on a property like this, that would easily be accomplished.
Further questions for Mr. Clark? Seeing none? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Horsfall.
Mr. Clark, of those 1,000 lots that you've looked into, how many of those are in towns? How many of those in cities?
Well, there's actually thousands, not just a thousand. There's,
Okay.
if you go
10,000, whatever the number
10,000,
is.
right.
How
Most
many
of them are in townships.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Tony, was there anyone else that you wish to speak?
Yeah, I'd like to introduce Lori Zorb. And the reason why Lori was here, I talked with a common council person that said, Tony, can you give me a chart, show me a chart that there's a demand for this type of housing out here. And I can't produce a chart, but I can produce a realtor that could just maybe briefly talk about what's going on in the current real estate market and or trends, and if she feels that there's a need for this type of housing in this community. So I'd like to introduce Lori Zorb.
Hello, I'm Lori Zorb with the Stark Company Realtors. I've been with the Stark Company for over 10 years. I've been one of the top agents in the area and work with people on a daily basis as to what they're looking for in housing. I'm seeing a lot of housing of people that are looking to move up with our economy that has changed. And with that, they're looking for different areas to go into, whether to get a bigger yard, to get a little bit more breathing room, to get a little bit bigger house for the growing family. In the process of doing that, I'm seeing a lot of people looking to the Verona area. I hear a lot of people, not only that live here currently, that are looking to move up, but I also hear people coming from other parts of the area trying to get into our Verona. Verona has a very good reputation. So as I work with these folks, we try to find them housing, and there seems to be a shortage of this type of housing. Reason I do know that is as I take them around and I'm showing them houses that currently exist or some lots that they can build on, they're not seeing anything available to them. I am then taking them to areas such as the town of Middleton quite a bit. One of the statistics I actually just pulled up over the weekend was seeing how many houses have just sold in the town of Middleton in the last 18 months. And again, our economy is getting a little bit better. We're seeing more movement all the way around with housing. You can see that by the amount of building that we're seeing all the way around. But the town of Middleton ended up doing $11.8 million worth of business of homes that are selling. These are all on septic and well. I then did kind of a search of Verona, and the only thing I saw was 2 houses that actually sold for $4.4 million total. And in looking at that, I'm actually seeing a difference of about $7.4 million of people going to the town of Middleton alone, looking for something that has more breathing room. And as you can see, town of Middleton is still opening up some more avenues, a lot of new subdivisions in Airport Road, with doing a lot of new construction. So when I'm looking at it, I'm unfortunately need to take some of our Verona buyers and taking them to other communities when in fact they would prefer to stay in this area. I do think there's a demand for it, absolutely. And I appreciate your consideration in allowing some of the people in our area to have that as an option to stay in the Verona.
If I could, Lori,
Yeah.
and I talk to a lot of people that are buying new homes, and I ask them why they are buying, and things are cyclical, and people go through a transition. Sometimes early on in their life, they may buy a starter home, and and then expand, have kids, do whatever, have bigger homes, and then a lot of times at the end of their life, they end up downsizing again as well. So I think there is a need. Well, I know that there's a need for all different levels and sizes of homes and lot sizes and so forth. So I think it's important to keep in mind that there is this transition in life, and people don't always stay in the same house like they did years ago and years ago. My father's 90 and has never left the house that he was born in. You don't see that much anymore. So I believe that there is a definite need, but do you want to speak to that issue at all?
Yeah, no, I definitely know there is. In fact, I was out to Wanakee today and just noticed the unbelievable amount of growth there. And just seeing, in fact, Wanakee's exploding. And they have the house sizes that Tony's looking at actually putting on the Brown Farm. And they're actually doing that in town. And I know people would prefer to have a little bit more breathing room. I know there's a demand for it. There just isn't the lots for it. So,
Are there questions from the Planning Commission members? Mr. Linder?
Not so many questions, more comments. February you came to us, I believe, and asked us a little bit about this, and I said I supported it then. Nothing's changed my mind at this point. I think this type of development could be good for Verona. I would be supportive of the septic and sewer on a like on a property like this. It is a little more difficult to get septic system on a property is a little more difficult to get sewer and water. And the lower density, like I said, I think that I agree with, I believe what Lori's saying, that there is people who want a bigger lot. I know my wife would love a bigger lot. It's not gonna happen, but.
I'll give you my card.
But there is people that talk about it, so I like what I see so far. I hope you guys can keep going.
Thank you, Mr. Linder. Other comments, questions? Mr. Yours?
I guess first of all, I gotta say, I've really enjoyed working with Mr. Heinrichs. I found him to be very honest and forthcoming. I've met with him many times, and I've really enjoyed working with him. And as he knows, I've had lots of questions on this property that I've gone to him before, and the one that kind of keeps sticking in my mind is, and I've talked this over with Adam a lot too, the precedent-setting nature of bringing well and septic into the city limits. And I understand where it's suitable for this property, and I understand the reasonings behind that, but I guess having spoken with Adam more and more, I'm not comfortable with bringing in that precedent into the city. I don't want to tie the city's hands with that type of issue, and so that leads me to answer the majority of the questions as no as well at this time. If things change where we're able to, where there's more surrounding development, able to get city utilities out there easier, I think I'd like to revisit it. But at this point, this is something I can't support.
Other comments, Mr. Horsfall?
I guess a couple questions. If this was in the city, then we would have to provide some kind of the roadway, and that would be a cost outlay? That's more of a question to Bob. I mean, that's, Mr. Heinrich has, go ahead.
Any improvements to the roads would be on the developer's nickel. And Sunset Drive will need to be improved right out of the gate. And that will not be city dollars, that will be developer dollars.
So all the roadways and stuff is the responsibility to giving up the standard of
The developer.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments? Mr. Lytle?
Well, I think this is the third or fourth time we've looked at this, and I've always had a lot of concerns, and I think a lot of it is structured around setting a precedent. Everybody talks about what could have been. It'd be interesting to think about how we would be looking at this as a consolidated town and city of Verona versus the city of Verona. One thing that I do feel quite strongly about, and I believe, is that if the city of Verona were looking at this purely from an environmental quality standpoint, absolutely the right thing to do would be to convert this into large rural lots. We talked about this a lot. I work with the people that do this for a living, about how it says existing land use is vacant, but it's not vacant from an overall standpoint. It's being farmed. And while I grew up in a farming community and my parents made their living farming, farming is not necessarily the most environmental friendly activity to take place on a piece of property. If you talk with the Madison Metropolitan Sewage District, they're continually being forced to tighten down their effluent requirements to try to meet nutrient limits. all kinds of different requirements that, if you look at the loads going into our waterways, it's from farming. And please don't anyone take that to mean I think farming is bad, or I think people that farm don't care about the environment. They're trying to make a living. They're trying to do their best by good soil control and erosion techniques. But there is no doubt in my mind that the overall quality and quantity of water coming off of this property would improve with residential development. That being said, there are plenty of other questions that are raised, but I just encourage folks to understand, and we had this discussion with CARPC and some of their staff, not their staff, but some of the board members for CARPC in the southwest area in terms of what happens to water quality as it's developed in a more urban setting versus farmland uses. So to restate, while there are a lot of concerns that I still have and questioning certainly from a precedent standpoint, I don't feel the environmental card is necessarily one to lay out there. There would be other potential uses that may be even a further improvement to the environment, but this would definitely improve the overall water quality, increase the infiltration, help out the groundwater table, all those things, even though these residences would be on well and septic.
Additional questions, comments, Ms. Ritter?
Just for clarification, Bob, the improvement to the intersection of Old PB and Sunset would be a requirement of the developer?
I believe that Dane County is making an improvement there right now. I believe they're going to be constructing a turn lane there. But if there would be additional turn lanes needed there, we'd have to talk to Dane County. We would need to have some kind of a traffic analysis on what the traffic coming out of here is going to be, and then we may have to add a right turn lane or a left turn lane, and again, that would be on the developer to make those improvements.
Okay. A couple questions for you, Tony. The distance of this property from the closest annexed part of our city is how far?
Well, what we would have to do is annex the Dane County, well, one of the things that we would most likely do would annex the Dane County Dog Park, and just to the north of Dane County Dog Park is the Verona Technology Park, which is obviously in the city, so.
Okay. So just for those who may be watching at home or who haven't been following this issue, can you talk a little bit about having this property in the city versus it being out in the township? Now, I know that the city of Verona has jurisdiction, if you want to say, over development within a certain boundary of our city, but the pros and cons are your thoughts of town versus city.
Well, probably a neighborhood of this size and the scale that we're talking about and dealing with this evening, the city is probably a little more suitable to service it, just from, and I guess I'm kind of speculating there. I don't know the equipment ratio from town versus city. Mm-hmm. So I'm taking a stab there that the city is probably a little more better equipped to deal with the types of services provided in the area.
Okay. I appreciate you bringing this map in that has the lot sizes that are close to it. I think it shows that there are in very close proximity some properties that are not too far out of scale compared to what you're planning here. My initial thought is to be supportive of this project. I lived in a neighborhood very similar to this in the town of Springdale, and while it was out in the township, but the septic systems that were out there, I went through the process of getting that approved and learning about them and how environmentally friendly that they are. So my initial thought depending, you know, I'm interested in the phasing part and how the roads are going to be built in phase, but my initial is support.
Other questions or comments? Just, I'll give you a couple thoughts. As a former beef operator, I would like to talk tonight about the importance of agriculture and how overall farmers are the best stewards of the land, but I won't go there tonight. Tony knows, and I've said this before, that I support this proposal or a proposal like it. What we said all along is that if this were to move forward, we need to be good neighbors with the neighbors that are currently there, the current landowners and residents. And that includes working with the county on the dog park and the Ice Age Trail. So I'm glad to hear that you're continuing to have conversations with them. I think staff specifically asked, about the 5 questions and if we could respond to those. So I do want to respond to those because I think it's important that we do. So the first question is, do we support private well and septic development for this specific property? And I do. Things need to be right. There's a lot of things that need to be worked out before this would occur. The annexation, agreements with the counties and so forth, but yes, I do. I do support it for this. The second question is, would we support private well and septic development for other areas that cannot be easily supported? I would say yes, but my preference would always be that we would be on city sewer and water. That'd be my preference. But I'm not making an exception for this property. I think we have to take a look at other properties and treat everyone equally. Third question, does the Planning Commission and Council support private well and septic development for areas that can easily be served by municipal water and sewer? There I'd say no. If it can be served by sewer and water, by municipal sewer and water, it should be. Fourth question, does the Planning Commission Council support lower density residential development in outlying areas which may be more difficult or costly to provide city services? And I would answer that yes, with the caveat that everything has to be in a balance. We need to take a look at every different project, and if it makes sense, it should be approved, and if it doesn't make sense, then we shouldn't approve it. It's as simple as that. The fifth question, do we support lower density residential development in outlying areas if the anticipated tax base is sufficient to cover the cost of providing city services? And again, that's that balance. And I think it needs to be responsible, appropriate development, and if that can be accomplished, then yes, I think we should support it. So I've supported it before. I've had the advantage of hearing the presentation or your thoughts several times over the years. I hope that it comes to fruition because I know that there's a desire and there's a need for people in the area for this type of housing. So we need to continue to work on it is my thought. I'm glad to see that it's not just the Brown property that we're looking at. We're looking at some of the neighboring properties, and that makes a lot of sense. So I thank you for being here this evening, Tony.
Thank you, everybody.
Other questions, comments, feedback from the Planning Commission? Seeing none, thank you, everyone, for that. Agenda item number 11 is update on the acquisition of property located at 102 East Park Lane. Mr. Sayre, if you would, please.
Thank you. We just wanted to give an update to the Planning Commission on a property the city is in the process of acquiring. This property is located at 102 East Park Lane, located immediately east of Sauzier's coffee shop. It's an old house that was most recently used as an office for an architectural archaeology company. The city is purchasing it, and we're in the process of completing the downtown plan, so we haven't identified a specific use for the site. Hopefully that plan will have a specific use for it, but what we saw in it was a property that was obviously in some distress, but also it's in a quadrant that will be impacted by any type of transportation improvements in the future. It's in that southeast quadrant of Verona Avenue and Main Street, so that is the quadrant that would be heavily impacted. So we just wanted to give the Planning Commission an update that the city is acquiring it. There is no definite use for it as of this time, but we'll be owning this shortly.
Mr. Linder?
Just a quick question. The Sauzier's on the back side of it then?
East. So in the left of this picture, the picture you see up there would be the left side of the picture. There's a parking lot there, then the Sauzier.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Lytle, please.
You may have made this more clear than I picked up on. The intent is to leave the building standing for the foreseeable future?
I believe the offer to purchase involved the current tenant being able to stay there for 6 months, and then at some point after that, we'll take a look at it. By that point, the downtown plan will be done. Hopefully, we'll have a better understanding of the use of the property. Obviously, if the plan would show up and say it should be a single-family home, well, maybe we sell it. I don't know. But, I mean, it really depends on what the plan says, and we'll move forward when we implement the plan.
Seeing no other business, a motion to adjourn would be in order. We have a motion by Mr. Linder, seconded by Mr. Yurs. All in favor of adjournment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.